Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. I hope you're having a great day. My name is Eric and I'm glad you could join us because today we're going to be doing some meat preservation. You know, of all the emails that I get on a daily basis, this singular topic comes up more than any. How do we preserve meat safely at home? Well, in today's episode, I'm going to show you how to make an Italian-style dry-cured piece of meat known as Bresaola safely. And you don't need a dry curing chamber, a basement, or a cellar. You could do this entire process in your refrigerator. What do you say? Let's get started.
All right, let's preserve some meat. The muscle that we're working with here is called the eye of round. It's from the cow. What I've done was completely removed any silver skin, any of the fat that was on this muscle, and I've left it completely clean. Now you can use this exact same recipe with all the same techniques with just about any protein and just about any muscle. So if you want to use game meat or pork, you can definitely do that. The first thing we need to do to preserve this meat is cure it. So I'm going to place that eye of round on a scale so that I can get the actual weight of that piece of meat. This is going to let us know how much spices to add. Now, right there it says 1,059. What you're going to do is go over to my website. There'll be a link for this recipe in the description box below. And when you get there, all you got to do is type the weight of the meat, which is 1,059, in that box that says how much do you want to make. And all the spices are going to automatically populate. Now, this isn't the recipe. This is just an example, but I think you get the idea. All right, so let's get our spice mix together. And the recipe that I'm going to have linked, I'm going to put a couple different flavored options. So if you want like a spicy version, a traditional Italian version, I'm going to have all that in the recipe. This recipe is salt, pepper, sugar, thyme, rosemary. We're going to add a little garlic powder and some juniper berries, and that is it. Notice we're not adding any curing salt. For this particular recipe, salt is sufficient. All right, so let's go ahead and crunch up those juniper berries, stick it into our spice mix, and that is done. So this is going to be more of like a traditional Italian style dry cured meat. And what we're going to do now is take 100% of that spice mix and sprinkle it on top of our meat. This method of curing is known as the equilibrium method. Doing it this way, we're going to use 100% of the spices that we're going to add. And the great thing about the equilibrium method is that it's a pretty forgiving method, and it's very difficult to oversalt your meat. So with this method, if, let's say, your cure time is 10 days, but something comes up and you can't get to it on the 10th day, you can leave it in your refrigerator for another week or 2 weeks, and you're going to be totally fine. All right, so we're basically just sprinkling that spice mix on all sides of this eye of round, and I'm just trying to rub it in. The goal right here is to use 100% of those spices. And so if I do have a little bit remaining inside that tin, I'm just going to add that to the bag so that it can all cure together. But I've got most of it on the muscle. We need to now put this into a vacuum seal bag. I like using a vacuum seal bag because I find it to be a little more efficient when it cures. But if you don't have a vacuum sealer, you can place this in a Ziploc bag. Just try to get as much air out of it as possible. So into the bag it goes. And let's just, let's see here. Let's just turn this sideways. Very good. And let's go ahead and take whatever's remaining in that tray as far as spices go and add that to the bag as well. And at this point, all we've got to do now is vacuum seal it, and we'll move on to the next step. Looking good, looking good. We got a nice tight seal. And let's now answer probably one of the most common questions we get when it comes to dry curing. How long does this need to cure in the refrigerator? Well, the answer comes down to how large of a piece of meat you're trying to cure. You want to measure the largest part of the muscle. In this case, notice that this side right here is larger than this side as far as the diameter concerned. So in this case, because it's tubular, I want to measure the diameter of the largest side. So I'll get a little tape measure, and it looks like we are at, what is that, 3.75 inches, roughly. All right, 3.75. Let's go over to a website. I'm going to put a link for that website in the description box below. This is going to give us how long we need to cure it. The website's called Genius Ideas, and that third tab right around the middle of the page says brining time. That's what we want to click on. So let's click on brining time, and here's where it tells us how long we need to cure our meat. So let's plug in 3.75 because that was the diameter of the largest side. I'm going to put it in inches, and then I'm going to select the tubular or cone option. Now, if you're doing a brisket, you would select flat. And notice it says 8.8 days. Now that's the minimum curing time. It does say right here to add an additional 20%. So if we add 20% to 8.8, it brings us to 10.5 days. We're just going to make it easy, and we're going to cure this for 11 days. And there we go. That's how many days it's going to hang out in our home fridge. Now, there's nothing special about the fridge. It's where you keep your cheese and your milk and your butter. So we're just going to place that in the fridge for 11 days. And through that 11-day period, I'm going to massage the muscle just like this on the front and the back. That's going to help work those spices in there. Then after I'm done massaging it, I'm just going to flip it over so that the top side is now on the bottom and the bottom side is now on the top. And there we go. Pretty simple. All right, let's get that into the fridge. We're going to wait 11 days, and this is what it looks like 11 days later. Absolutely perfect. So we've massaged it every day, we've flipped it, and let's go ahead and cut it open. Your meat at this point is going to be fully cured from the outside all the way to the center, and it should smell pretty amazing. Now, what I like to do here is just pat it dry. You could completely rinse it off if you want, but I like that spice coating on the outside with the herbs, so we're going to leave that on. I am going to remove the juniper berries because that's not very appetizing when you bite into them. And once I just give it a little pat, now it's mostly dry. It's a little damp, but that's okay. We're now going to start the process of drying these. We're going to be using some dry aging steak wraps that I got from the sausage maker. Now, these are typically used to dry age beef in your refrigerator, but I've found that this is a great wrap to do dry cured meats in your refrigerator as well. I'm going to put a link in the description box below if you want more information on these wraps. And I think I've only got like a half a sheet left or something like that. So here in a second, I'll show you what an entire sheet looks like. This is the wrap. It's plant-based, and it restricts how much moisture is being released from the meat as it's in the refrigerator. One thing you need to know about these wraps is that they are incredibly fragile. So if you mess with them too much or if they get too wet, they're very easy to tear. With that being said, you want your meat to be slightly damp. And so if you've dried it too much, sprinkle a little water on it or even a little wine, and then go ahead and start to press that wrap onto the meat. Make sure you press out any air pockets, and once your meat is completely wrapped, we're going to go ahead and put a netting on it, which is going to hold that wrap tight to the meat and maintain its shape. Okay, now that we're all wrapped up, let's weigh the meat and record that weight. I want to try to target a 35% weight loss. Now, if you like yours a little more firm, you could target a 40% weight loss, but I'm going to go with 35%. So the actual weight is 1,090 grams, and my target weight is 708 grams. That's 35% less than our actual weight. Once it hits that target weight, we are good to go, and this is finished. But like I said earlier, if you like a more firm charcuterie, something where it doesn't have, too soft of a texture, you can let this dry to 40% and it'll be just as good. We're going to go ahead and put that tag on there, and this is ready for the refrigerator. Now, you have a couple options here. You do want to try to get airflow on the top and the bottom during this drying process. So one option is to hang it if you have a fridge that can do that. Or another option, if you can't hang it, would be to put it on some sort of a grating or a rack that allows airflow to basically flow all the way around it. That's going to allow it to dry evenly. All right, so either way you do it, it's totally fine. Let's go ahead and stick this into the refrigerator. Once we get to that target weight of 708 grams, we'll slice it open and give it a taste. All right, so just very quickly, let me show you what a full-size sheet looks like. This is the dry aging wraps from the sausage maker. These are great wraps. There's 3 to a pack, and we rarely use a full sheet. Usually we'll cut a piece off, and then whatever we don't use, we'll fold back up and pop it in the bag. And so there you go. These are great not only for dry aging beef, but for doing all kinds of dry curing projects. Okay, 7 weeks later, this is what it looks like. Absolutely beautiful. Look at this. Just great. We hit our target, so we're at 35% weight loss. When I give it a squeeze, it's firm throughout. It doesn't feel like it has, like an exterior crust, which is a good thing. And look, mine took 7 weeks, but the amount of time that it takes to dry is completely relative to the size. So, yours may take 6 weeks. It may take 8 weeks. It just depends on how big the meat is when you start. Don't worry too much about the time. What I would do is just, weigh it every week or two until you reach your target number. Let's go ahead and cut it open and give it a taste.
right, folks, we've got our Italian-style dry-cured beef, also known as Bresaola. Notice I made two flavors. This one right here is going to be more like your smoky, spicy Calabrian style. It's got a beautiful spiced crust on it, whereas this one is going to be a little more delicate. It's got a pepper crust with the rosemary and thyme element to it. Both are absolutely delicious, but they taste completely different. So, all right, let's go ahead and try the traditional flavor. And if you make this at home, you want to make sure you slice this paper thin. If you have a meat slicer, that's absolutely brilliant. It's very difficult to do with a knife. When you slice it paper thin, because this has like a prosciutto quality, it'll just basically melt in your mouth. If you slice it too thick, it's going to seem a bit chewy. I want you to pay attention to the texture when I pull it apart. This is going to be ultra tender. Look at this. Just very, very tender. It just comes right apart. Let's go ahead and give it a taste. Oh. Wow. The thyme and the rosemary are just accenting that incredible beefy flavor. Nice pepper crust on the outside. This is incredible. This is scrumptious. Now, let's try the spicier version, the Calabrian style. Wow. Now, this is the one that I would typically go for because I tend to go for the spicier, the smokier flavors. And you're definitely picking up that Calabrian pepper. You're definitely picking up that fennel. Just as tender. Let's tear that apart. Amazing. Wow, the flavors just bloom. Fennel, Calabrian pepper. It's a little spicy. It's a little smoky. Truth be told, between the both of those, I'm going spicy all day long. But they're both very, very tasty. All right, let's talk about shelf life and storage. When your meat is finished drying. Now, in my case, I dried it to 35%, but you know, if you dry yours to 40%, that's okay. Only slice what you're going to eat, okay? Don't pre-slice the entire thing. If you pre-slice the entire thing, it can expose your meat to bacteria and it will start oxidizing your slices, which can make it go bad quicker. All right, so just slice what you're going to eat, leave the rest whole. After you're done munching on this, when you're ready for storage, what I would do is give the outside a little splash with your favorite wine and then stick it in a vacuum sealed bag. You can technically put this in an airtight container, but I find that a vacuum sealed bag works a lot better. Once it's in a vacuum sealed bag, you can then store it in your refrigerator or your freezer. In the freezer, it'll last indefinitely. In the refrigerator, truth is, I don't know how long it'll last. I've had some mussels in vacuum sealed bags in the refrigerator that had been there a year and they were totally fine. And I've had others that have been there a year and a half and they were totally fine. So I can safely say that it'll last at least a year and a half in your refrigerator in a vacuum sealed bag. If you do not store it in a vacuum sealed bag, it's going to slowly continue to dry, which is not that big of a deal. It's just going to be a little more firm. All right. So I hope that answered your questions. Thanks a lot for watching this video. I do hope that you get a chance to try out this super easy recipe, get into the world of dry curing meats, meat preservations, and if you have any questions, drop them in the comment section below. If you found this video useful, give me a great big thumbs up. And if you're new to this channel and you like meat preservation, sausage making, things like that, take a moment and click that subscribe button and that notification bell because in just 1 week, we are premiering season 3 of Celebrate Sausage. We've got 31 videos, one for every day through the month of October. I don't want you to miss a single episode. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.